and the Soviet Union, you can gain a fuller appreciation of what needs to be sustained in freer countries to keep political dynamism and to keep kind of open media alive.
Okay, that's important. You make a distinction, and that was one that had informed certainly the 20th century, was the dialectic between what would be called, let's just call it in loose terms, the capitalist world, or the world that Marxists would see as an imperialistic world of sea power, Britain and all that sort of thing, colonizing of the world by Western powers, and on the other hand, the Soviet or the Marxian challenge to the capitalist meaning of seeing the human condition. A lot of people say that 1989 signaled the implosion of the Soviet Union, interestingly missed by our intelligence agencies by and large.
So true.
Because they were perhaps tunnel visioned, and that's another issue. But that the good guys, in a certain sense, won. That'd be us, the Western model, and that threat from a Marxian or a proletarian view of the organization of world society or economic theory and everything is now gone, and it's just a matter of getting things right on the ship that now is rightfully carrying the legacy of legitimacy into the future.
I guess that's right. I think we might have thrown away a few babies with the bathwater in 1989 and 1991. And you know, one of the thoughts that we maybe will raise in this hour is thinking about the means of production when it comes to media, and who needs to control those. And you know, do we have access, as you do, to this great studio and other resources? New trends are developing where, people have a truer, realer access to the video conversation that's happening.
To video, and video is building out of a tradition of film, is it not?
I think it.
And we had Marshall McLuhan studied the media is the message. He said the new media, or the old media, is the content of the new media, and that you know, the medium by which we communicate is more important than the message, that kind of thing. But it's evolving, and it's having effects on consciousness, and it's moving in almost exponential proportions as we get into a cyber world, where the film and the tradition of film and communication is melding with video and now digital video processes, and things are moving at lightning speed, aren't they?
I've been reading this book by Kevin Kelly, What Technology Wants, which is fascinating. And he speaks of the fact, here's some statistics that relate. There are 500,000 movies that have been created in mankind's history.
500,000?
A million TV episodes. 11 million songs have been recorded. 16 million books. These are approximations. You know, and the question is, how do we access all of that?
Right. The movies, that would have been like Hollywood Fair, documentaries, that kind of thing and everything. The book, what if you think about it, civilization, there was cuneiform at Hammurabi's time, and then there was the alphabet, and we had phonetic alphabet, we had a literature, we could do it. Gutenberg was voted by the people of the world, I think, a big survey, is the most important person of the last 1,000 years for having brought the printing press, where you could disseminate information through print. But we haven't had any other means of, there was some painting done of chapels or cathedrals, some that way, cave paintings back in Cro-Magnon culture. But by and large, it's been the alphabet that's been the carrier of that. And we haven't had motion pictures, or we haven't had photography, except Brady, maybe Civil War. And it was in the last eye blink, really, of the human experience that we had any other way to convey information, one generation to another, other than print. And now we're going into a position where those things are coming to a fruition, where we're able to have multimedia, if we include camcorders and the ability to edit and that sort of thing, is now becoming ubiquitous and is developing very quickly and is subsuming the institutions and thoughts of the past. You just spelled out all of those things, including film.
I think that's right. There are people who say that video is the new vernacular. And if that's the case, you know, that's a pretty rich topic to investigate. You know, that means that we have to enable people in order to have a healthy political economy, to communicate in audiovisual means.
And
that's a different kind of literacy. That's a different kind of fluency.
Absolutely, it's a different literacy, and it's one that is like I've used an example in other things. In the case of, I use an example. It would be a way to wade in. James Michener wrote Hawaii, beautiful writer, and he had a man standing on a headland in a seaside in Hawaii, and it took him 12 pages to describe in linear, strung out literature, beautiful literature, that the sky was blue and the sea was blue-green and the gull was flying and the breeze was coming and the waving of the... It took 10 pages to describe what, if you were standing there in real life, or if you've got a multimedia expression, you would experience multisensorially, and all at once. It's got an electric quality.
A picture's worth 1,000 words or whatever. How much is a moving picture?
A moving picture's worth even more.
Yeah.
But it's getting closer to the way we experience the reality as we walk through the environment.
Yeah.
And that would have been the case with Cro-Magnon caves men or something. They would experience multisensorily. We're getting back closer to mimicking the way in which we actually experience the world in real terms, other than strictly through the linear, one thing at a time, even onto the idea of what forms rationality, that has been the lot of the Western civilization, do you think? That's trying to inform the entire world.
I think we are bombarded with so many images all the time now. We're making sense of the world largely through images now, moving images in particular.
And this is a thing only the last few decades.
That's it.
Just a little tiny drip of the cherry on top of the frosting on top of the cake.
Film is 100 years old or something.
If that, yeah, it is. And it seems always that when there's a new medium, it is thought by the keepers of the canon of the old established medium as being trivial. And there is a tendency in this society, American society and world society, to have look very askance at the idea. You determine if your site is intelligent media, not well marketed, not quick, not grabbing, not going to get cornflake sales or any of the kind of things that are used by marketers, but intelligent program. And the concept of intelligence is derided at a certain level. There seems to be an anti-intellectual bias that's very wide in the society of the United States and the world. Including, I mean, we can celebrate Tiger Woods for playing a good game of golf, or somebody who can win a match of running the marathon. But when it comes to intelligence, it seems to be they want to degrade the idea or downplay the idea of intelligence as a worthy part of the human experience. Do you understand what I'm saying, and do you think it's true?
I do. I mean, I think Richard Hofstadter wrote a book on that very topic of anti-intellectualism in American life. But it's a funny thing, because I think we underestimate the sage quality of everyone we know to our peril. Everybody's got an amazing story.
It's true.
And everybody processes information in their own way wisely. And so there are group dynamics that take a hold, and there are political movements that may do. But you know, if you're at a dinner table, or if you're in a church or a synagogue, or if you're in a group conversation or a bowling alley, or some of the conversations that you're engaged in are so deep and so true that I don't know to what degree we're really anti-intellectual. I just think we, you know, the market, such as it is for television, is such that it, you know, look what's happened to the Learning Channel.
Okay, what has? Share me with me.
Well, the Learning Channel was created at the dawn of the Discovery Channel. And it's gone from being the Learning Channel with beautiful shows about science and scientists and what have you, to being shows about, you know, I don't know, folks who operate tattoo parlors. It went from the Learning Channel to TLC. In general, it may be the case that when you commercialize media, you have a difficult time sustaining the high quality of discourse in it. And it may be the case that what we need to argue for is kind of the preservation or the creation of alternative spaces for public media.
Okay, public media and media. Intelligent media. Multimedia.
Exactly that.
We saw a thing. Nova puts on things that are really worth it.
Nova's fantastic.
They have fantastic presentations, the most important kind of thing, and there's not even one letter of the alphabet necessary, is being done by multimedia, and academia seems to have a brief against multimedia. Well, the academic professions are all wed to books, footnotes, and this kind of thing, and they count that as really real, but multimedia is just trivial entertainment at the best.
Well, as you were saying, kind of moving images have just been around for an eye blink, as you put it, and they have to battle against 500 years worth of printing press technology and bias, but it's beginning to change. I remember, you showed me the other day, you interviewed Buckminster Fuller.
Yeah, he's very inspirational to me,
And you and he were talking now almost 40 years ago.
1974,
about the creation of sort of the future of universities. They might become production studios. And you know what? Through the support of a number of foundations and government agencies, the Open University in England, MIT here, Yale, some other universities, UC Berkeley, are becoming universities of the air.
Okay, that's very interesting,
So I think that's really interesting. Yeah, exactly, because you have a lot of people who are trying to download these things on the internet, on iTunes, you name it.
Yeah, I understand MIT has their curriculum on the web. I mean, you can get the curriculum there, and other schools are following. The Ivy League schools are following. So you get the curriculum that you have to pay $70,000 a year to get a room and board and curriculum and sit at the feet of somebody. But it's now being made available. Usually that's in print with an outline and that sort of thing.
If you're in Timbuktu, you can watch a video lecture for free.
Well, that's the thing. I was familiar, worth mentioning, I mentioned you Walter Perry. He started the Open University.
Yes, he did.
Very interesting man and everything. They tried to set up an office here in New York on 57th Street. We were helping them do some programs, Owings Mill, Maryland. They wanted to do some connecting of scholars that are of note, that are really could be made available to universities across the country. And in England, they didn't have many universities. They didn't have much there because they just had been very class conscious. A few people at the top would be running Oxford and Cambridge and so forth. But they made it available. But here, you got this thing, and the people who resented the idea of having, let's say, the leader in a particular field, the Tiger Woods of a particular field that everybody else is interpreting, rather than make that available to people as it could be done, the lecture, they were objecting to that because it would undercut their authority in their classroom. Do you understand?
I do, yeah.
So there's a problem there of turf, and there's a problem there of the academic community is not adequately able to understand how much can be conveyed by multimedia in an intelligent, in the highest order, intelligent pattern.
I think that's beginning to change, and I think technology is. Yeah, I do. I really do. I think technology has become this kind of great equalizer and is bringing lectures from distinguished academics to anybody, anywhere. And increasingly, if we nurture that system, we'll be able to create more and more material. We'll be able to digitize legacy material that all of that material will be available to, our children. Our children's children.
And there's encouragement with Rosetta, and the encouragement where we're being able to close the gap of communications between the languages of the world. They can do it with optical character generation of Kurzweil, with print and so forth, and they're doing it to where they can translate the languages autonomically through computer cyber processes, individually and cyber, from one language to the other languages of the world. And do you see that in your research, that that's emerging? And that's a capability that's just come to us.
It certainly is.
Huge Rosetta kind of...
Crowdsourcing of subtitles into all kinds of different languages for audiovisual files is the newest thing. Plus, just around the corner, you know how you can search for anything with typing in, a word.
Yes.
Soon, there's going to be video search where you can just put an image up, and you'll be able to search the web. based to find images that look like that image, and soon you'll be able to search in moving image files.
Right. Yeah.
Now that that goes back to your sort of Paleolithic man experience.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it would.
Looking around for things that look like what's on your cave wall.
Right. We'd also need a new indexing system if we're going to do it by image. We're not going to be doing it alphabetically like we do the dictionary.
That's right.
We need a new dictionary definition, or Dewey Decimal, Library of Congress, in order we break knowledge down by that system.
Right.
But whether we can put the image and the use of images and variegation of images, do we have an adequate way of indexing the images that are available to us, both still and photographic images and film images, television images, in a way that makes it adequate for people to get access to that which they would want to see?
That's the $100,000 question. That right there is the biggest question. I mean, part of what intelligent television is about is not just the content of the television, being sort of documentaries about interesting historical, political topics, but also television and video that's self-aware, that is intelligent, or as Kevin Kelly would put it, sentient. It is television that knows what itself is about and is searchable, is indexable, and that challenge relates to production facilities, relates to the entire business of audiovisual production, which is to enable those digital files, just like you're saying, to be searchable, to be taggable, to be editable by machines and by people.
Yeah, something other than what the dictionary or Dewey Decimal or Library of Congress gives us for putting a grid on reality. A new epistemology.
You need a new epistemology.
And is it emerging?
It is. I think there's all kinds of metadata that is being applied to audiovisual files to make, but it's the eye blink of the eye blink. It's just beginning, and so what we're at the cusp of now is almost too exciting.
Yeah, that's right. You're at the cusp, and you've been working these 11 years since last you and I spoke in the studio on that very thing, dealing with the institutions that are relevant to developing all of that. And that's what I take my hat off to you and all your colleagues. And what you've been doing, we want to talk about that. You have this incredibly rich site, if I may say so, called Intelligent Television.
Thanks.
Now, I'm wondering, we're going to try, if we can, to see, maybe you could bring that up and we could show that on the screen to the people, because it's particularly rich, and you could navigate a little bit if you want. And we'll see if we can try to bring up the Intelligent Television site, if you could. So let's see if we can do that in the control room. And if they have trouble, give them a couple of seconds to try and get it up, and then we could navigate that.
Yeah. I'm looking at our site here.
Can we bring it? Maybe we're not going to be able to. I don't know. If we can't bring it up, we'll just come back into conversation. But if you can bring it up and bring up the picture on the screen of the site, Intelligent Television. You're not able to do it, George?
Oh, you want it?
Yes, please. Yes, bring it up, please, if you can. And it's very rich, and you've got a great number of people, and you've been associating yourself with such issues as copyright, licensing.
One of the world's largest and most diverse film and television material from the earliest days of film in the 1890s right up until the present day.
News, historical feature film clips, wildlife, celebrity, entertainment, music performance, sport.
5 million photographs, 4.5 miles of documents, the largest record collections in Britain, over 400,000 complete programmes.
Cans and cans and cans and cans of film.
Sitting there, not doing anything.
Sitting on shelves.
Unused.
We could conceivably let people walk up and down the shelves, but it's not a very meaningful experience.
It's a very complicated process.
So all of that would need to be translated into a medium that we can scale in terms of distribution and access. And of course, in the digital age, we finally have that medium and that distribution mechanism.
If you take an example like women's suffrage, it's something that very often we take for granted. So being able to go back to film and look at the incredibly brave actions of women like the Pankhursts. I think that that's something that film is kind of uniquely placed to allow us to do.
You will find that the BBC Sound Archive does list some recordings.
We'll put some of the dimensions of what's available to us and so forth.
Well, what that clip is about, actually, is it demonstrates how little of our audiovisual record that's important or intelligent, to use the word we've been tossing around, is actually digitized and available to the public.
You
know, less than 5% of the BBC's enormous archive. A tiny percent of what's in our Library of Congress.
Has been digitized.
Has been digitized
and
made available.
It's essential that information become digitized in order to be effectively indexed and available?
Well, it's essential that it becomes available using the technologies that can enable every man. And I mean that in the, you know, Carl Becker sense. Every man can access this kind of thing.
And that's part of a revolution that's relatively recent. There were media revolutions before the digital age.
Yes, this is a huge one.
So this is just the last 20 years or so.
This is a huge one. I mean, imagine being able to search this corpus of human creation, of all of these movies, of all these television episodes, of all our songs and all our books, and especially, you know, the educational ones, the culturally significant ones. All the artifacts that are in our museums. This potential is explosive.
What, if we say the movies, if you think of movies, there are movies that, if you say educational, I've heard a term used, edutainment.
Yes.
You know, I've not heard that term except just recently. But something that has educational content, if ever you use that term in media circles, they would absolutely walk out of the room. They would say there is no market. There's nothing can be done that has anything to do...
In commercial media circles.
In commercial media circles, which tend to have very strong say in the overall operation of our media reality, right?
Absolutely. But if you take as a premise that there are lots of people, millions of people, who like to self-educate,
that is increasing.
I think it's increasing. So the question is, how do you get advertisers, how do you get sponsors to underwrite productions that are intelligent?
And exactly right.
I think that's a key
of the highest
question.
order.
I think that to me is the most important question: how you connect money, education, and culture in new ways using this new technology.
I would reference a thing that we just referenced that we were talking before, that a friend of mine who was really into Mandelbrot and fractal geometry, which is fantastic. Nova did an absolutely tour de force presentation of that. They had all of the reasoning of it, why it worked, why it took the supercomputer to have fractal geometry deal with chaos theory, all of this sort of the most intellectually high order with Mandelbrot, with the people who understand. They did this thing, and they presented an hour of that, it could hardly be. I had a friend who was particularly interested in that, and absolutely entranced that that was presented because it was so well done, and there wasn't a single letter of the alphabet, I believe, in that whole thing. It was all done multimedia. And if you have translation capability between the languages of the world, a person could get the most educational content of the world knowledge to them, and if it's in the language that they can understand, they would be able to access that even if they were illiterate.
That's right.
Even if they were illiterate, they would only have to be able to understand and be able to talk in order to be accessing some of the best well put together multimedia language without the intervening written language. You understand? Is that possibly emerging?
Completely.
And couldn't that be a revolution in terms of making available information to the people of the world, even the illiterate people?
I think it is.
Okay, good. And that's a huge thing.
Everybody. It's a huge thing. We did this report.
Yes, please. I'll hold it up.
Last year in 2000.
I'll hold this up, and you can come in on this tight focus.
2010, and that report is sort of begins with some statistics as well, indicating that, you know, in a few years, the internet, over 90% of all the traffic on the internet will be video.
Really? Now, what year are you talking?
2013.
2013, so just around the corner.
2 years away.
It's going to be video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Already, a lot of it is, but the preponderance, overwhelmingly, in 2013-14 will be video. And
where is that going to come from?
It's all on the web.
All on the web. Are there sources of that we have? If you think in terms of television, I went to 1,900 channels the other day on the local cable television system. There was nothing.
Well, your
that
show.
had to do with
Your show.
Well, no, there was no channel that it was intelligent television, like you're talking about, where they're putting things like reruns of Nova, or the things where there really been serious consideration of things. It's treated as though it has no meaning or no place because it doesn't fit the market. Or why is that? Are they protecting copyright? Are copyright laws preventing good television to be made? Or is it marketing decision because there's such a small audience for anything intelligent? Are they assuming the people can only be dumbed down by media? Why is it that intelligent presentation of the store of human knowledge is not made available and artfully done to the people of the world?
I think there needs to be a great, a second visit. If you remember, a number of big corporations underwrote great performances and other terrific classic shows on American public television. I think there needs to be a new and vigorous exploration of how advertising can support intelligent programming. There is a significant demand for this kind of programming.
Okay.
There is, on the other hand, this kind of spiral of kind of commercial preconceptions and network attitudes that kind of reduce everything to the lowest common denominator. And there's some vestigial programs out there like 60 Minutes, some of the segments in particular on 60 Minutes. Public broadcasting is a different thing. But I think there needs to be a general rethinking of the corpus of quality programming and where we need to go.
Yeah, you define great performances could be put within a thing of entertainment, and that's okay. If you have grand opera or you have ballet or something, it's very culturally beautiful things that are done.
Yeah.
But other things where you're creating, like this thing with Mendelbrot, and other things, or there are things, the History Channel is putting on things about Augustus Caesar and so forth that is really very worthy of consideration. It's got pictures, it's got images, and it's got things which can be viewed by people. Again, I'm really intrigued by the translating of the words into the languages of the world to people who would view it, would be able to be getting do you understand what I'm saying? That thing about being able to translate the languages of the world. I don't know how close we are to that, to where that can autonomically be done. But what an amazing thing that would be possible for the transmission of knowledge in a multimedia context.
Yes.
It's something that could become to inform. Mr. Fuller, back in '74, said, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember, he said the only thing about universities that will exist, he was thinking about the turn of the century, were those as production centers for multimedia presentations of the content of the professors who will become content providers of them, and there'll be multimedia presentations to educate the world. We haven't come to that yet.
Well, he might have been, 140 years early, but a lot of that's beginning again.
Okay.
Like a lot of universities had television studios back in the 1970s, right as you were doing that interview. And increasingly, classrooms are being video recorded. And what that does is it enables all of us to connect to the content of those quality lectures.
Well, those are lectures. They can be done.
Yep.
But what about the presentation of Cecil B. DeMille kinds of production values that are done in some of these Nova things where it's not a lecture. It's not a lecture that's being projected. That can be done. It's very easy. It's cheap. You can just record, talk and that sort of thing. But real production, particularly you got these kids coming along that can do Final Cut Pro and all kinds of things. They're going to be able to do that as easily as we do punctuation of a paragraph.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. Like what we need to do is create, create network production capabilities between all of us to take this kind. Again, you speak of Gutenberg. Gutenberg was, he's been the dominant force for all these years. But now we might be in a place where, at the end of 6 years, a professor, instead of generating a great-looking book, generates a great-looking film.
Exactly right. You turn them into film stars.
Yeah. I think that's beginning to percolate right now.
Also, I wonder, is there anything to be said for the fact that academia has become so specialized? And that, particularly with linear regression, the first use of the computer, you could get very highly specialized. And they're confusing specialization. I mean, they're confusing real scholarship with specialization to the point where you don't have hardly anything offering systems understanding of things, where you're connecting things between parts of a system, subsystems, into a systems understanding where you can get an overview of what's going on. And it seems to be youth is looking for that. They're looking for patterns that can make sense out of a whole lot of things that are happening. History, geography, economics, politics, all kinds of things. They're looking for that. And they've divided the world up into highly specialized things where somebody becomes the expert on one particular thing, and then they bore the bejesus out of people in the classroom because they know all the details of that specialization, and it divides and conquers the intellectual enterprise. If you understand.
I do. I think that's really beautifully put. I think also machines are looking to make patterns.
Okay, yes,
so
indeed.
When you have all of this video beginning to get out there, increasingly you'll be able to have connections being formed by search algorithms and other things that bring together parts of, an explanation of physics here,
they're tags, like you were saying, and ways of connecting systems. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Like, part of the work that I'm doing now is helping great cultural and educational institutions put more of the video that's in their collections on Wikipedia.
Okay, yeah, talk about
Wikipedia is this maybe our largest educational or cultural commons.
It's amazing. Wallace or somebody started, a guy named Wallace?
Yeah, Jimmy Wales. Wales, and a visionary of the first magnitude.
Yeah, I agree with you, yeah.
What you've got is something that began as a text, essentially centered enterprise. Now, what if Wikipedia had started 100 years from now as a video-based enterprise? Wow, what that would look like. Videopedia. Increasingly, images are getting into Wikipedia, and now moving images have an opportunity to get in there.
Into the Wikipedia distribution or the Wikipedia system?
Into this great commons of material. And once a video file is in Wikipedia, you, me, we can pull it down, work with it, put it back up there, integrate it into other things, because the technology enables that and the rights enable that.
Okay, that's something you've been looking at. We have a system of copyright, licensing, and all of these kind of things that make up the media market. You've been looking into these things.
Yes.
And is there, like, if you have, for instance, let's just take an example and help me set me straight. And we want to try and get to show your site again like we were trying to do before. But if you have a thing like, I just happened to mention the thing they did on Mandelbrot, Nova, the other day. So if somebody wants to take that Nova thing, they're doing a thing on Mandelbrot or on fractal geometry or fractals and that sort of thing, and they want to just take that thing, that film, and put it on their Wikipedia page or something like that, there would be something that would prevent them from doing it because there is a copyright or a license agreement that was built into the means by which that production was achieved, and that has to be vouchsafed, and also the licensing.
That's right.
Where do those things stand in terms of helping in the creation of good programming, and how do they, if they do, get in the possibility of disseminating information by a democratically organized free flow of information? And how do those all work out?
I think, just to pick up on this sort of future-oriented question, I think when you're looking at creating, as you put it, Cecil B. DeMille type productions that are intellectual and quality or intelligent, you're going to want to have the ability to clear all the rights in such a way that you can take that finished product and you can take all of the component parts of it, the music, the images, the interviews, the archival footage and what have you, and make that available to the public to do what they want to do with it.
As a finished product that is yours.
A finished product that is yours, but also have the component parts so that the public can remix that kind of material.
So they can, that's what Wikipedia does, you can edit and also, but that means that you can have access to something, but if there is a copyright infringement in that process by which you make something available that you hadn't cleared, as it were, through the system, then that would be a violation and there could be legal action taken against you for that.
But what I'm saying is new productions need to take this into account. And you have to try to clear all those rights in new productions. And if the great foundations like Ford and MacArthur and Rockefeller and Hewlett and Mellon and the new ones too are underwriting public media going forward, it needs to be truly public. It needs to be cleared for, all that media needs to be cleared for public use and reuse.
Well, public use and reuse. So if there's a new creation, let's say Nova, okay, Nova is a thing of PBS, I guess, and everything, they do it. And so that, that use of that, there would be copyright. There would probably be a copyright statement at the end of it. What does that mean in terms of the public being able to share pieces of it or a piece of music from it or an image or anything? What does it mean? How limiting is it on the free, open source kind of free use kind of thing of the citizen that they could have access to, let's just say, you know, images from that in order to put together a thing they're putting together without being threatened by the law for violating some important thing that's important to our economy?
Well, the internet is a relatively new thing. It's an eye blink of an eye blink of an eye blink compared to sort of television production. And it's been the case that traditionally audiovisual productions have not focused on being, you know, streamed online. To say nothing of being streamed online and downloaded. To say nothing of being streamed online, downloaded, and enabling the user to do what they want with it and put it back up online.
Or take a piece of it.
Or take a piece of it.
Okay.
So traditionally, the copyright notice that's been at the end of a show, whatever that show is.
As there was with the book.
Yeah.
As there was through all kinds of media to protect the legitimate right of the creator of it.
Right.
Okay, that's a principle.
Has been restrictive. And I think increasingly it's to the advantage of media makers everywhere to enable folks to take that material and do stuff with it.
If you can, to make it as open and available to the individual who wants to take a piece of something, make it part of their thing. And there's a term open source.
Yes.
And there's a view of the internet into that, so that they don't. So would that violate the premises and the effects of our copyright laws, our licensing agreements that have to be worked out with the major companies? Or how is the public in general, who wants to, let's say we've got a world of people who are going to put together really interesting intellectually pieces of material. They want a piece of music here, a flow of the sea here, or something like that. They got a creative thing. They want to, and can be just putting things together the way they want to without being worried about violating the copyright or somebody who's got one piece of that thing that they would like to put into their creation that they take off the net or something.
So I think what needs to happen is new productions need to be sort of inspired by this kind of vision of a world where we're all communicating using the resources that you're making and that I'm making. So if you interview me, I will sign a release, or you will get me to sign a release.
I will ask you to, as a matter of fact, we're going to do
all rights,
that.
you know, you can do whatever you want with this interview. If you take a picture outside, as a lot of people are posting those pictures on Flickr and elsewhere, you can say, you can do anything with this picture.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Now, there are relationships that pre-exist the internet between guilds and unions and production companies that all are being revisited now because no one thought this entire sort of giant supercomputer. What's being built between all these laptops and desktops and PDAs and cell phones.
And it's all moving exponential.
Exponential.
It really is exponential.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But you know, but the thing is, we're all competing for like this square real estate. You know what I mean? Like my kids are looking at this. They're looking at this screen. And my question is, what will they be looking at in that screen?
Right. Okay.
How do we make material interviews, you know, more advanced productions that are intelligent in nature, sort of surface there, as opposed to interviews with Snooki. Nothing against Snooki.
No. But that's a thing that is geared toward a mass thing that is anti-intellectualism in a sense. Maybe it's because they think there's no point in understanding it. One of the things is we said that the medium of the new medium is takes the old medium as its content. So there's an evolving of events in terms of media extension of consciousness through time, and things change through time. And you get to a point where, like, for instance, you have the capability. 20 years ago, we would not have had, say 35 years ago, we would not have had the ability to understand the way the brain works. We didn't know about neurotransmitters. We didn't know any of these things. So things are developed. Let's say something is developed, or let's say now you've got a child who's got a certain ailment, and they've discovered through research, and they had to have, like in the biochemical, they discovered a pill that can serve that. But they have to get their amortization out of what they had. So the investment by which the research is advanced and is able to be done has to be amortized, so they could sit and watch the child die because the child doesn't have the $5,000 to pay for the pill that had to be in order to meet the amortizing of the old outdated situation to which we are evolving. Do you understand? That we don't have a proper economic system that makes possible. So we have a capability at a level, just one little meta step to reality. We have a capability that our systems inherited out of a situation that has been transformed. Is not going to allow us to realize because we're enthralled and reifying outdated institutions that have to be subsumed somehow, and we don't have the vision of that either politically or economically in order to have the system that the future either offers a new possibility for or requires, and that makes for an upset, and maybe that's why they assume that there's no point in listening to anybody who's going to try and reify those institutions, because they're just going to reify a situation where the power and everything is in the hands of a few people, and the system is not what the future requires. There's an angst that was loose in the general society because we don't have an operating manual for the overall system of how we're going to deal with this qualitatively changing situation. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No operating manual.
No operating manual. Buckminster Fuller said it didn't come with an operating manual. But we're beginning to understand the larger context, but it isn't articulated by our leadership. We're just reifying outdated institutions. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
In 1999, when we talked, I remember we talked a little bit about the origin of public broadcasting. And, you know, public broadcasting was set up by the heads of the great universities. MIT's head, Jerome Wisner, was part of it. The head of the University of Chicago, Harvard. Ralph Ellison was one of the committee members. And you know what? I think what we need is a kind of new vision of public media that's put together by great academics, to be sure, but also technologists who can really appreciate what it is that's an operating manual. And if we're all sort of being connected through the web in this giant supercomputer, you know, Kevin Kelly again says what technology wants is increasing sentience.
Sentience, understanding.
Wisdom, understanding, exactly. So, you know, which I'm partial to with intelligent television.
That might be what evolution is about.
That's exactly what he says. Human evolution, animal evolution, plant evolution, and technological evolution.
And it's an anti-entropic function in a thermodynamic universe.
Well, yes. But whatever you said, I agree with.
Well, it's just, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But if that's the case, then there's kind of business about, you know, are we really anti-intellectual? We might be anti-intellectual, but we may actually be pro-intelligent or something like that. And maybe there's a balance that technologists could help us sort out so that we can those of us who want to, you know, engage in this activity or watch this on that screen can do it. But those of us who want to do something else can do it also, and find that quality material, such as exists at the British Film Institute or the BBC or the American Museum of Natural History, and just have it out there, digitized and online for us anytime we want it.
And you're working with the people that are trying to do that. You've ticked off a couple of institutions. Yeah. I don't know, could you try and see if you could bring up your site again, or should we try that?
It's up to you.
Well, give it a try.
Sure.
Can you bring it up and bring it, because your site is so rich.
Yeah.
And you have a great number of really important people. You've been in touch with a lot of these institutes. There, I think maybe if you got it now?
No, that's not it.
That's not it. Okay. Well, maybe we just can't. Okay, so maybe we better try and come back to us, Josh, if you can. Okay, and maybe we're going to be doing a second hour with you, because I think your insights are so important. Maybe we can try and get it straightened out to where we could do that in the second hour and let it go for now. Great. But the fact that you have been following these things in these 11 years since you and I spoke last, and we've had a conversation since. You've been following the realities of that. The institute. You've been talking to the people within the overall industry, the foundations. You've been talking to the copyright people, the licensing. You're beginning to understand, and you've put together a team of people. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the structure of intelligent television as an entity, and what it is your mission, or what your statement is, and then some of the progress you're making toward realizing your goals.
I'd be delighted to.
Thank you.
I think the real opportunity is to try and view quality programming largely for the web, which is where most people are going to be watching it.
Seems that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sort of as a business.
Okay.
And to try and see how public entities and private advertisers can come together to enable, you know, your show, which you put on the web now on YouTube.
Yeah, I've got about 1,000 programs up on YouTube.
1,000 programs on YouTube.
Almost 3,000 we've done, yeah.
So, and I saw like the Buckminster Fuller program, just to pick that example again, has got almost 60,000 views already.
There's one that's got 2,600,000 views. Well, that's getting to be real numbers for YouTube. You know? For just talk, academic talk.
That's,
you know.
That's numbers.
No dancing bears, no naked women, nothing.
Television.
You know, yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Where are the dancing bears?
Well, I don't know, but there should be room for dancing bears and whatever, naked bears if they want. But
dancing bears.
But yes, that's true. Yeah. YouTube is a great way, because you can do that with no cost, and you can archive.
But that demonstrates, does it not, that there's a real appetite for that kind of material?
Well, apparently when you get on a world scale,
even in the absence of marketing. I mean, I don't know that, you know, you take ads out on buses or cell phones. Or,
I wouldn't know how.
Yeah, you don't.
I wouldn't know how. All I know how to do.
So people have found this already, even in the limited search environment that we're at with audiovisual material. They found you and your interviewees without the dancing naked women bears.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single dancing naked bear there at all.
On the web.
Yeah.
And that's what a statement that is.
The tags help they can get, and they have a system. It's a primitive, but it's getting a system where you can get to content of people you're interested. If you're interested in Mandelbrot and you were interested in fractal geometry, you could get to that thing that Nova did.
That's right.
You know.
So I think, you know, the real challenge is, if you look at the New Yorker magazine, or the Atlantic, or Wired, or Harper's, you know, these are great publications.
Yes, they are.
And they have advertisers. Now, why can't there be, you know, the Guardian newspaper is another fantastic publication. Why can't there be advertisers from the same companies? Why can't they be sponsoring the kind of, you know, if you have a writer in the New Yorker who appears on your show, or a writer for the Atlantic, or a photographer whose photos appear in why can't those same sponsors travel into the audiovisual universe as they take ads similarly in these magazines, like IBM, Intel, Thomson Reuters, Apple. These are companies that advertise regularly in these news magazines. This is a report we did also last year called "On Building a New Market for Culture."
Let me hold it up. Yeah, this is from your thing. We're going to try and get. This is actually from your site, right?
Yeah. Well, we did that for the British government.
Okay, this is the thing that these people have put together on building a new market for culture, virtue and necessity in a screen-based economy. That's very interesting. And you did this for whom?
For the British government agency GISC. The Joint Information Systems Committee.
I think I know them. Yeah, I do know the GIST. Yeah, GIST. Yeah.
They underwrite a lot of the digitization programs that British cultural and educational institutions engage in, museums, libraries, etc.
I see. Yeah, and I see you got Scientific Content Alliance, BBC, and others. And these are institutions that exist in the information environment.
They do.
And you understand it pretty well, the way it's structured, the industry and the entities that are of significance in terms of media and particularly multimedia production distribution systems are. You understand it
I do.
overall?
I mean, I think we need to build new support structures to get the great quality sources of material together with advertisers and underwriters.
And that's something you're working at. So you have people... And you're also investigating those realities in a realistic way.
Yeah.
And dealing with it. And how are things going? How many do you have involved at Intelligent Television? You have a number of people involved there, I know.
Yeah, we bring together teams of people to do research projects or to do new productions.
Right.
Depending on the size and scope of these things, as any, depending on the size of the research project or production project, it can be anywhere from 2 people to 12, 15 people working on a given thing.
Right, and this thing that you did, this thing you just showed, that was commissioned by some institution?
Yes,
it was. So they put out a call for wanting to have information well done, well researched, and you were able to meet that call, and then have it published because it was joined well. It was seen to be worthy and that sort of thing.
That's exactly right.
Are there many opportunities for you to ask to have from the industry or from the entities that make up the overall media mix of everything for papers that are trying to get an understanding of things that are relevant as this study that you can apply your research capability to understand that world better?
Not enough, but they're growing. That's the kind of great thing. If we do have the possibility to look on the web, I could show you one thing that's coming up this spring that's fairly exciting.
Maybe?
Sure.
Yeah.
The launch in Europe in March of Presto Center, as it's called.
Presto Center, okay.
Yeah, this is the kind of culmination of a multi-year initiative bringing together the BBC, the French Audiovisual Archive, INA, the Italian state television RISE archive, the Dutch and the German, together into a research center, figuring out how to make sense in the networked world of all these audiovisual assets that all of them share.
What a thing this is called for.
It is fantastic, and they've asked me to give kind of the opening talk at the launch of this event.
Wonderful. When is that? When would that be?
It's March 14th, 15th this year in right next to Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's going to be based there.
There's no component I heard of the United States there.
There isn't. There isn't.
Could there be? Or
there should be.
Yourself,
and in the
what an honor! I'm glad that that's happening.
No, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
In the United States, our Library of Congress, our Smithsonian Institution, and our National Archives are all moving to a degree in this direction.
Yeah.
They're not yet cross-pollinating in all the ways that they could, and they've only begun to digitize a small percentage of because just the tasks that all of them do on the day-to-day basis with non-digital stuff, huge. But a friend at the Smithsonian, for example, is launching the Smithsonian Commons. Another thing we should look at, or your viewers can Google the Smithsonian Commons. That is going to be an environment where all kinds of Smithsonian assets can be found.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. We've come to the end of this hour. We're going to do another hour. It's your pleasure to have these perceptions. Peter B. Kaufman, executive producer of Intelligent Television. We're going to be talking about that. We'll pick it up from here, and we'll let that program air tomorrow, following this one with Peter. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
So good for talking to you. And do tune in. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. But that's it for this particular program. Thank you for viewing, and do look for tomorrow a follow-up to this particular program that we'll be taping